Hello and welcome to the Gooners podcast. Mike.
Yeah, happy times, happy times. I mean, not just Arsenal and Spurs, but I mean, you're here for two shows in a row. You're
Was
back.
it two in a row?
We almost have to stop talking about how you never come to pods anymore because you've been to the last two pods. Although this time you're on time, which is great.
Yeah.
What time zone are you in right now? And you were able to look at a clock rather than your mother?
Yeah, I'm in like the Indian time zones. We're on the half hour.
Yes. What time is
That's
it?
what I was last week.
What time is it in New Delhi? It's 10 and a half hours earlier. How the hell does that work? But it works for them. We got Eoin with us today. Eoin, good to see you. Thank you for picking up the slack on the open mic show yesterday. It was class.
It was, yeah.
Even when I came on, it didn't go down that far.
No, it didn't, and it was good. It was a bit of a therapy session, and I now know that Jake's life is that bad that he admitted that he would replace you with Granit Xhaka as his father.
Oh, I forgot about
so
that.
we're just constantly learning things about each other, buddy. But probably, this is where our relationship is going to end. Unfortunately, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. But and we'll just, when our relationship ends, we'll replace you with the man in the lower left-hand corner, who tells me that the chat loves to call him Pudgy. What is it?
It was Pudgy Messiah.
Pudgy Messiah.
I liked. Yeah, I quite like that one.
I mean,
out of all the Jesus ones, that's one of the most inventive.
I brought you on so that you would not be Pudgy, because in relation to me, no one's Pudgy. But James from the Purely Arsenal podcast.
That's me.
Good to have you back on again. We always enjoy
Thanks.
it when you drop by and lay the fun and the comedy on us. So it's good to see you again. No pressure. Big win. We have beaten the Spurs. We have reclaimed North London, where we never really lost it, and they do get battered everywhere they go. So we have to talk about the game. We want to talk about the game. So Andy, let's kick it off.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird ones, Mike, because you went into full meltdown, both online, in private, and I know that you were like, I'm really just sitting here with this goofy emoji, but I know you well enough to know Stephanie probably had to lock herself away. I know Jake had a big night Saturday. He probably thought part of his homecoming was ruined because of how aggressive you got about Granit Xhaka finding his way back into the team. In hindsight, it was a genius move, and he played really well, but I know for about an hour you overreacted, and your blood pressure probably skyrocketed. Was it Merlot, Mike? Was it overreactive, Mike?
It was perspective, Mike. And I said on Twitter, I said, you know what? My meltdown over Granit Xhaka starting this game was spread over 3 weeks of just knowing it was going to happen and saying, well, there's nothing we can do. So when it actually happened, it's like, I'm going to get in a little bit of technical talk here that the finance people will understand. It's like, when a major announcement happens to a company on the stock market, sometimes it's a good announcement, but the stock goes down. Sometimes it's a bad announcement, but the stock goes up. And the reason is because it's already built into the stock. So the Xhaka news was already built into me. I already knew it was going to happen. I let a little bit of my anger about it kind of seep out moment by moment over 3 weeks. So by the time it finally happened, I was like, well, there it is. All right, let's hope it works. Arteta, you're going to die on this hill if it ends up costing you. And frankly, someone at the pub mentioned Xhaka's best games for Arsenal come right after he's returned from something dumb that he did. And then it starts getting bad again. So like you want to play him, and then like 3 games in, then you have to bench him to avoid the meltdown again.
Absolutely. And James, in hindsight, as I said, the starting of Xhaka, he played really well. To Mike's point, he had some time off to relax. He probably does have a cool head. He did niggle and nick some of the players quite often, but the referee kept the pocket or the card in the pocket. And some of those were decent little fouls to just stop play and never aggressive enough. But, what are your thoughts on him just walking back into the side? Was it tactical? Is it just because he seemingly starts every goddamn week he wants? And then what were your general thoughts on the lineup after that? Everyone else around him.
Yeah, so at first I was initially like, oh no, really? Because I really enjoyed the system that we've been using with Partey at the base and then having like Odegaard and Smith Rowe as 2 number 10s theoretically, and then obviously Pepe in there as well. And I thought with how bad Spurs have looked, especially on the right-hand side, I thought potentially if you want to switch Pepe to the left and put Saka back on the right, which we did, and we've seen how better he's been when he plays on the right in the last 2 games because he come on and changed Wimbledon playing on the right-hand side as well. I thought maybe he'll stick with that, but I think how much the manager seems to love the player, the players seem to love him. You know, it was only a couple of years ago that they voted for him to be the captain, so they still clearly love the guy. And I like you said, pleasantly surprised with how well he played. And yeah, I was really impressed. And it was quite unfortunate when he got injured. That was the only, real bad thing in the game other than their goal for me.
And then Owen, it sounded like when he came out and they did the announcement of the starting 11, I mean, he actually got a pretty large cheer. I don't know if it was like a legitimate or just like a, but like he actually got a fairly large cheer from the Emirates. So like, what do you take into that?
Look, I think that, as I've mentioned before, that sometimes we get swept up in the fact that we consider the Twitter fan base to be the Arsenal fan base as a whole, when the reality of it is that the majority of the time what you see on Twitter is completely different to the match day fan, if you will, that how Arsenal fans actually behave in real life. It even led me yesterday to be quite concerned over what kind of reception the Arsenal fans were going to give when they were doing the round of applause for in remembrance of Jimmy Greaves. So it was really good to see that everybody turned out in good spirits to applaud a man who was definitely deserving of receiving that. But back to Xhaka. Look, as the boys said, Granit Xhaka is somebody who, when he does come back from something like that, often comes back in quite a good fashion. He seems to there's a bit more of a spring in his step. He's always got a point to prove. The only problem with Granit Xhaka is that he needs one of those down in the dumps moments to have that resurgence, and that just isn't sustainable. But in saying that, the cheer that you heard at the Emirates maybe yesterday is because sometimes I think it was James that mentioned those little tackles, those little nibbles, the little fouls that we see. You're going to get those with Xhaka. Sometimes that's a necessary evil. And I think somebody pointed out in the chat there, I think it was Aston Max, says I think you can justify Xhaka by realising he was one of the only 3 players over the age of 23, which is absolutely spot on. Is that he does bring a seniority to the starting 11. In those matches, he can be quite useful at calming those younger players down, at providing a bit of presence on the pitch. And I think yesterday was just a classic Granit Xhaka performance. I don't think he was absolutely outstanding, but he did a lot of the dirty work that needs done and kept things very basic and very reliable. I put out a thread on Twitter that I had some disagreement with, and I can absolutely see where people are disagreeing with it. My opinion of the inclusion of Granit Xhaka wasn't about his ability or what I was worried that he was going to do. My worry of it is that I don't think that we should be hanging our coats on the coat hanger of Granit Xhaka being the leader of Arsenal going into the future. And for me, there's just a natural hierarchy that develops within a group anywhere, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's within a group of friends, or whether it's on a football pitch. That there's only room for so many leaders, and until we sweep Granit Xhaka aside, players like Kieran Tierney, Martin Odegaard, Gabriel, these players aren't going to get the opportunity to rise up and become the leaders that we really need them to be, whilst Granit Xhaka is there. But look, I think to focus on anything negative after a game like that is just silly if you don't enjoy it. Results like yesterday. I would question what type of football fan you are if you're not enjoying a game like that. And the truth is that Granit Xhaka was a pivotal part of that. So you have to pay him his dues when he performs well, as much as we criticize him when he doesn't.
Yeah,
I think the crowd. The match going crowd generally will give the benefit of the doubt and support the player from the start. Yes, it was the match going crowd that was kind of mocking him as he walked off against Palace on that fateful day. Clapping his exclusion, but that was 60 minutes into a game where he was quite poor. And yes, the crowd against Palace in that 3-0 loss with the "you're not fit to wear the shirt." I mean, that game began with very, very supportive away fans, and it just devolved as the game went on. So it doesn't surprise me at all to see, he's an Arsenal player. He was playing for the Arsenal against Tottenham that day, and I'm pleased that you can count on generally real good support from the beginning from the Arsenal fans. So I'm done.
I'm
Do you have a
contractually
timer?
obliged to put this up at least 6 times in a pod. I Lee Gunnered it last week. I said if he plays, I'm done, and I flip flopped because one thing that in hindsight, Nuno came out after the match and said he got his starting 11 wrong, he got his tactics wrong, whereas Arteta got everything perfect. I mean, the boys were totally up for it. And I do think, if you take one player out of that side, it's a completely different tactic, whether it's Xhaka. I know Pepe got dropped. So, Mike, NBC put up a stat right before the match or during saying that this was the youngest team entering the Premier League weekend by age. And I think someone in the comments also put that Xhaka was one of those older players. And I want to make out a point to Owen. I think, when you look at leadership, there's 2 types, right? You've got your Patrick Vieira voice, and then you've got your Dennis Bergkamp, who's lead by just example. And I don't know that you can say well, Jacques is the leader and he pushes other people out. I think that he's that aggressive, I'm going to get in the face of the opponent. I know how to get these players. And regardless of our opinion of him, he might be loved by those 20-year-olds. And so Arteta sees that and says, well, he's got to stay, right? But again, different match. Let's see what happens next week. But Mike, the fact that we're the youngest team in the Premier League this weekend, we played as well as we did. Granted, Spurs were absolute shit. The famous phrase, you can't win anything with kids. What are your thoughts there? I mean, we played so well. Was it a combination of us just being good or Spurs being that bad?
No, you make teams be bad sometimes. Yeah, if they turn around. There are times where we give stuff away that the other team didn't cause us to do, and you could easily say, yeah, Arsenal were just that bad because, they just did the stupidest things. Rarely does that happen to a team that we're playing against. But, Spurs were not great, and we made them look awful. So, yes, we were that good. And I've been saying since, I mentioned it a handful of times, but when Freddie Ljungberg took over the team for that brief period of time after Unai Emery, I took a look at the roster and on Transfer Market, I had it sort from age down, the oldest to the youngest, and David Luiz was up there, and Socrates and Lichtsteiner I think was still there, and I just saw a line at age 25 where I'm there's maybe 2 players above that line that I would start. One was Bernd Leno and one was Aubameyang. I'm everyone lower than that, I wouldn't start everyone lower than that, but I could be okay starting a team from everyone that was younger than that. And that's 2 years ago. Saka was 2 years younger than he is now. Smith Rowe was 2 years younger and not really into the team yet. So I've been dying to see this youth anyway. And there's no time better than the present to see our talented youth play. You don't want them, sprinkling and experimenting things when you're making a run for 3rd or 4th place. But right now, the momentum is with the kids. We just have to find out the right combination of more senior players to play with them rather than find out the right combination of the young players to play with a team of seniors. And that's Arteta's biggest job right now is not upsetting the whole balance of the team. Does Lacazette work better with the kids or does Aubameyang? Does Xhaka work better or is putting one of the young kids, Lokanga, in his place better? Those are the challenges that he has, but the younger the better as far as I'm concerned. I want that Leo Messo to play next week. That 8-year-old wonder kid. I'm hoping to see him while I'm over in England.
Well,
on the pitch.
At what point last week did Mikel Arteta have to call in Bernd Leno and unbreak that promise that all the media stated that he made that Ramsdale would drop back to the bench? Just goes to show again the clickbait media of England and Arsenal specifically.
That would have made me more. I knew Granit Xhaka was going to play, but I'm if he starts Leno against Spurs, then like you, Andy, I'm done. I don't know what I'm done with because everyone who says they're done with Arsenal's never done with Arsenal.
All you have to do is you can say something, and then as long as you admit the next week that you've Lee Gunnered it, you can go back. You can go back. It's like it wipes it clean. Now, James,
is that kind of like when you say that you're going to accept money and send a shirt to somebody and then you just change your mind?
Yeah. You send your shirts out, so you can't be like,
No,
I mean,
he's
got
probably
half of that transaction right. He got the part where he gets the money right, and then the other part where the shirt actually gets where the purchase gets fulfilled.
He's
so
very
great.
too busy eating his sausage sandwich.
He came up a little bit short.
James, the majority of fans 2 weeks ago wanted Arteta out. Yesterday, the man could have been built a statue. I get it, but is this a paper over the cracks, Band-Aid type of solution, or do you think that maybe this Arsenal team, now that, for the first time in a long time, every senior player was available for selection? Is this now the corner we're turning where Arteta has the team, probably 80 to 90% of the team he wants, right? Because the transfer window, we brought in a lot of players, and we're seeing them play now week in and week out. What do you think about this? Is it overreaction, or is it still like, hey, we've got a lot of issues under the surface?
I think the most important thing is it's bought more time. We've got a running coming up of 5 games. When you look at them all, the ones that stand out the most for me are actually Brighton and Villa.
Oh, no, you can't say Villa. It's the Emi Martinez derby.
Okay. So, Brighton and the Emi Martinez derby, they're the ones that stand out for me as the two that you're thinking, they're probably the toughest, looking at how Leicester have got on and Leeds are getting on at the moment as well. So I think if we do relatively well out of all those, then you can properly judge. And the other big thing for me is this spine that he's got now of, Partey and that back 5. If one of them, if something happens to, a suspension or an injury to one of them, whoever comes in, if we can still stay at that level, then that's where I would really go, okay, now I'm seeing something. Because that's the main worry for me is if one of them goes, are we just going to drop off completely? Because I think the level that's underneath them, sadly, is still not anywhere near. I'm not, okay, Maitland-Niles is, coming in and he's looking good here and there, but I don't think he's got the technical quality on the ball for our midfield, sadly, compared to the others that are there. Lokonga, I like him. He's got beautiful range of pass and everything else, but still, he's still relatively new. And in terms of if Tomiyasu or Gabriel get injured, I don't want to see Mari and Cedric, sadly.
Yeah, we've seen how early in the season when the team struggled, the excuse was, well, we don't have our best players. Look at who's missing. And it seemingly turned out to be a fairly valid excuse. You want to, from a team standpoint, you want to be able to weather those storms, but you're now talking about the flip side of it, where now we have everyone available for selection other than maybe Granit Xhaka going forward for a few weeks. And that's where there's still more work to be done is making sure the drop off is not that significant when you have to miss a player. And right now, our current winning streak and our purple patch, if you will, is very tenuous based on, and it could all go down based on 1 or 2 people getting hurt. So,
exactly.
But you say that though, Mike, and Owen, what do you think here? Because when I think about it, I'm thinking, okay, so if a center back goes out, Holding jumps in, and you're like, okay, he's had a fairly decent run of matches, so I'm like, that's not huge. Tommy goes out, you're like, all right, you've got Cedric, Chambers, you can go in. That's probably a bigger one because since we've seen the young kid, he's just been phenomenal. And then if Xhaka goes out, we've seen how good Lokonga. So, I think to James's point, if you're changing 3 or 4 of them, issue. But if it's 1 or 2, I feel like you can tweak that. But, what was the statistic? Since Gabriel's return, we've conceded, now 2 goals, but we haven't lost.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I do and then yesterday, you got to give credit to Ben White. They looked like they were like, okay, he's the guy we're going to attack. And in the first 5 minutes, he was like, nope.
Mm-hmm.
He was fucking superb yesterday. That was the Ben White we were talking about last week where we're like, we've seen way more positive performances. He just needs to get over the hump. But
I haven't heard that from a lot of people. I even asked because I was I was doing a lot of stuff at the pub yesterday, doing the charity event and stuff. So I didn't get to really drill down on the players. So I asked somebody that was at the pub, I said, what'd you make of Ben White today? And he's like, he was fine.
But that's what you want. You want him to just be fine.
Know.
You don't,
But
guys, when Mike says he asked someone at the pub, he's looking in a mirror in the bathroom, talking to himself. and that's that's who he's
I
quoting.
couldn't even get to the bathroom because of all of my fans that were huddled around me trying to. But yeah, no, I'm just saying your praise of him is something that maybe that I haven't heard that much. And in a partnership with Gabrielle, where Gabrielle seems to get more of the headlines than Ben White is, I don't mind a $50 million quietly good center back. It doesn't need to be.
But like,
here's what I'll say in Ben White's defense is that for me, we were always told individually going out onto the football pitch playing, win your first battle, whether that's a pass or a tackle or your first touch or whatever it is, just make it a good one. And if it wasn't for Ben White yesterday, I don't think we would have seen the aggression and the willingness to fly into those challenges, because he was the first one to put in a real heavy slide tackle and set that tempo very early on. He set the standard of the commitment that you're going into those challenges with, and I think that just lifted everybody, not only on the pitch but in the stands as well.
And if it was Mustafi doing that, we would have gotten a red card. We would have been down to 10 men. The whole match would have been different.
Yeah,
So.
The referee would have went over and been like, it was a great tackle and a fair challenge, but I got to red card you. But as Miami John wrote, White's first tackle at the minute 20 mark set the tone for the whole match. And I think it did for both.
Stole my point.
Yeah. You both have the same point, but throwing out to the comments, like, it kind of set the tone for both teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what?
Aston would like to say that tackle was brilliant. He's a hot take from Aston.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's put that on a T-shirt. I will say this. Whenever Liverpool were winning during their title season run 2 seasons ago, you never heard about how well their defense played, right? And that's what you want. You want your defenders to just go in, do their business, and you don't necessarily have to think, oh, Gabrielle was fantastic, White was fantastic. You never heard that about Van Dijk, Gomez. It was just like they were there and everyone knew how good they were. You don't have to say it. So
the one thing about our backline, and I think this is quite crazy at the start of the season, if you were to tell me this, but I think that if we could lose anybody out of that backline, and I think it would probably be Ben White and Kieran Tierney. And Kieran Tierney is my favourite player for Arsenal. I absolutely adore the guy. But I think that Tomiyasu and Gabriel are more pivotal out of the four. They are the more pivotal systemically in terms of solidifying that back four.
I don't know. I mean, Noon Tavage is a winner in my book, but the drop off from Tierney, the things that Tierney can do.
I'm not saying there's a drop off, but I'm saying
I know, but I would agree with you that maybe Ben White is the one that is easier to replace because of the things that the others do. But I wouldn't put Tierney in the same category. I would put it as a 3-1 because Tierney brings so much in the attack, and I don't know how, in an extended run of games, and we may unfortunately end up finding out based on prior experience, but I agree with the point, which was about Ben White really more.
But the only thing, again, to caveat my own point, and I've said this before, is that the things that we are questioning Ben White over are the things that we were worried, or the things that we weren't worried about. And what I mean by that is he was beating Harry Kane in the air to every ball. Defensively, he was very solid position, very good. It's just his progression on the ball and stuff that hasn't been exactly where we maybe would have expected. And I can almost guarantee you that that's going to come within time. It's just going to take him a little bit of time to forget about that price tag, to settle, to start to know his teammates, to understand the movements of the side. And that is something that will come within time. But it's really positive to see him answering questions that a lot of people had about his physicality and his willingness to defend.
It's a great topic you brought up. I mean, the Gooners podcast, episode 6.41. Who can we afford to lose?
Yeah.
Focus on like if these players die, could we still get top 6?
So in the 12 years I've known Mike, I know 3 things about him. Okay, his love for bedazzled yarmulkes. If you guys don't have one yet, close to Hanukkah, he will mail them out.
My Etsy store launches next week.
Yeah,
and you will fulfill your orders.
Yeah.
I will keep your money and fulfill your order, not just the first one.
The second thing that I know that Mike likes, I'm not allowed to share on air or we'll get canceled. But the third thing is his love of a knee slide. And Mike, I need you to break down in detail your thoughts on the Aubameyang knee slide.
Well, Owen and I were talking about this a lot, and we spoke about it yesterday on the pod, and I'll let him do his bit on this. But knee slides can be graded on a lot of different things, and it could be they grade it on the length of the slide, how straight they are, or whether they're curved. They can be on their width. Most people actually think a wide knee slide is better than a long knee slide in many cases. The girth, I should say. How many people are together in the knee slide? I like multi-person knee slides, but yeah, I do love a good knee slide. I do have that on record as saying, and this one yesterday was the rare treble. He pulled off the treble, and I'm gonna pass it over to Owen to get us canceled.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a massive pleasure in doing that. Look, we were talking off air, myself and Mike, about like how pristine, like the Emirates pitch is literally known as the carpet. It is absolutely pristine, and I'm pretty sure our groundsman would be fuming at the best of times with those types of celebrations. But Jared made a very, very good point that if that was what we think it was, making that third line, thank God, because where would he have ended up without that anchorage? He would have still been going. He would have been down in Selhurst Park.
the friction necessary to stop a player like Aubameyang is tremendous, and he's got it.
Mike broke this down. We did a VAR and we did an instant replay and tactically broke this down. Tactical breakdown coming soon to the Gooners podcast. And he sort of came to the conclusion that it was actually his foot. So if you look here, okay, you can't see him from the waist up. There you go. You'll see his foot starting to rotate now, and it seems to be the tip of his toe. All I can say is that with how
so I'm reading between the guys. You guys are saying it's his penis.
Andy, Jesus,
we're not saying that it's his penis, but we're also not saying that.
All I'm saying is the groundsman is probably so thankful that it wasn't, because that would have been a huge crater. Because the guy has balls of steel, obviously finishing like that in a North London derby. So, captain, my captain.
So yeah, it was a great knee slide, and the goal. I mean, can we actually talk about something a little more family friendly here already? The goal itself made me nearly orgasm all over the place. I mean, starts with Granit Xhaka. And then, as I called it earlier today on TGT, it was a Giroud-like or Giroud-esque little dinky touch to get the ball back to ESR, who knew that ESR was just going to run onto it in space. And then the old Aubameyang, the one who wasn't playing in front of fans and was therefore not happy or energetic, would have probably just took it a jog up the pitch and watched the play develop. This Aubameyang turned and ran his ass off to get to the 18, find his space to get the pass back from ESR for a cool one-time finish. I mean, that kind of Arsenal streaming forward and just looking dangerous like that, that's an Arsenal we have not seen in a long, long time. We certainly didn't see it in any of our previous wins this season. We didn't see it in our losses. And, peak Wenger ball, and we've seen it a few times since then, but that was my favorite goal I've seen Arsenal score in a long time, just because of the free-flowing nature of it. And the knee slide, the triple knee slide was a bonus.
So I'll be honest, I actually Sunday, because the whole family thing, we went to a pumpkin patch. So I was listening to the match on my AirPods, and
the things you miss Arsenal games for keep getting more and more ridiculous.
Well, it's also the fact that so Saturday night I went to see the Rapids play. Unfortunately, Cole was not playing, but we had a nice little chat before the match. And my neighbor I went with was like, "So what do you think is going to happen tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Arsenal are going to get battered." He's like, "Yeah, but Tottenham are pretty bad." I said, "It doesn't matter. It's Arsenal. Like, we'll make them look good." So I just said to Chris, book whatever you want to book because I just don't expect it. But so my point was, I got home, jumped on the trainer and worked out, and I rewatched the first half. And I'm not sure I can remember a better 45 minutes of Arsenal since maybe 2016, maybe even not then before. But probably more the soccer goal. But even knowing the score and listening to the match live, the soccer goal gave me goosebumps just watching it all over again. I don't know what it was, more than the Emil Smith Rowe goal. But it was just to you guys, I don't know when we've played that well. Like United kind of comes to mind, but like we could have easily put 5 or 6 in. And the only thing I would have gotten angry about yesterday is the fact we took our foot off the gas in the second half. Like that's the only thing I was angry about, because we could have really just pulverized them. But it was kind of like one of those, you see City did it to us, right? The match is out of grasp. Let's just play. Let's just like, it was basically a training match.
The life out of
it. It was a training match in the second 45 minutes.
James, I was saying to someone with me at the pub, I'm like, actually, I was saying it to John Horlick, our buddy, fellow pony. I'll explain that sometime. I was like, I wouldn't mind seeing the most boring second half ever. Like we're not protecting a 1-0 lead. We're protecting a 3-0 lead. James, would you say that like you would share Andy's disappointment that we didn't really just put our foot on their neck and go for the jugular? Or were you in the mood to see a pretty boring half as long as it didn't include conceding 2 goals and getting to squeaky bum time?
Yeah, I mean, I agree in hindsight with the result and everything else like that. But when you think about it, we have got a very cautious manager. So you sort of predicted that, going by his standards, we're probably going to get to about 65, 70 minutes. Then he's going to bring, Tavares, and I was thinking maybe he'd bring another defender on as well and just shut it up a bit more. But he brought Niles on, which had to be done because Xhaka obviously got injured. But no, I would have watching when we go 3-0 up playing like that. Yeah, you want to punch him in the throat. You want to beat him bad because part of me was like, it could come down to goal difference where we finish. So let's bump it up. Try and bump it up a bit. But when you were talking about the knee slides as well, I just want to give Saka a shout out because he stopped right on the line. It was just the timing of it was perfect, absolutely sensational. I was very impressed, as well as the goal. I thought the celebration was very, very good. And Kane's been getting set up by him for England for a while. It was nice for him to repay the favour as well. I think it was a lovely little assist. Well, 2 assists, 1 in the build-up and then 1 again.
It made it so much better that was Kane he was basically plowing through to score that goal.
The highlights are on TV right now. Let's go a quick round table, man of the match performance. James, we'll start with you. Who do you kind of put above everyone else for your man of the match?
Yeah, I picked Saka just for he won a lot of his tackles and he made a lot of recoveries as well. So it was defensively as well as offensively class. But you could have given it to him. You could have given it to Smith Rowe, Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, even apart from the suicide ball to Xhaka, which he apologised for after the game. He didn't get that with the previous keeper. And I also liked as well when that goal went in, how angry he was at himself. He's like smacking himself in the face, like he got angry that he let the goal in. So that's the thing. I don't mind him making those kind of mistakes because I know he'll learn. Whereas if Leno does it, doesn't care. He's like, well, I'm still going to play next week anyway. So no, I'm glad we've made that change.
I'm going to jump in and just echo that real fast. I would give it to Ramsdale. Everyone was superb. All 11. You could choose from any of them. But there were certain saves, especially in the first half, that near post shot from Son early on. But the save where he saved it and it rebounds off the crossbar, his initial reaction after that was to essentially turn and just bitch out 3 players that the shot even went towards goal.
Yeah.
And that's what we've lacked. Like we've talked about it so often that, but not since Koscielny or prior to Koscielny did we have a leader back there who will actually yell and say, what the fuck are you doing? That should not happen, right? It's usually like a high five, but like he was furious and I love to see it. So my man of the match would go to him because he made 2 or 3 other saves and moments of the game where, as Mike mentioned, squeaky bum time, we were there and, buttholes got real tight. And he kind of kept them from.
He's got a real presence, hasn't he?
He does.
I think that team needs. I think they need someone to actually yell at them. But as well as that, it's the positive affirmation he gives. Like the shot that in the second half that comes from Kane, and then he saved it and it rolled out, and then Tomiyasu just quickly whipped it away from the corner. He picks Tomiyasu straight back up and he's like, yeah, come on, you're my guy. And he said in his interview afterwards, it wasn't on TV here, but I watched it later on Twitter when it came up. He said that forging these relationships that he has, because he was really disappointed he didn't get picked for the England team in the last international break, but he's like, no, I stayed here and trained, wanted to get to know my back four and everything, and you can really see it paying off. I mean, he also mentioned that he's known Ben White since they were 17, 18, from when they were young and lived in Bournemouth, near each other, and they can't believe that they're at Arsenal. They've gone from being friends to teammates as well. So it's just nice to hear that stuff
like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a huge chemistry guy, and I just absolutely love. I don't mean like I have beakers and shit. I mean like I love team chemistry.
Oh, he does, but they're for his yarmulkes.
That doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, the chemistry on this team, and that's why you could give man of the match to 9 players. Saka was magnificent. ESR, Odegaard, Thomas Partey is the silent assassin. I mean, he almost broke his duck. That would have been the roof that doesn't exist at the Emirates would have come off the Emirates if he had scored. But when everyone's kind of so close and canceling each other out, you got to look at Ramsdale, and it's not just the saves he made. It's he's making the 4 players in front of him better, and they're already not bad. But this unit, we haven't had a unit, and by unit I mean the 5 players in the back, including the goalkeeper, that is meant to shut down the opposition's opportunities at scoring goals. We have not had a consistent unit in how many years?
It's been quite a while.
The closest was, when at least we knew that like Purr and Koscielny were going to start. Monreal was on the left, and
Bellerin was on the right.
And like the former version of Bellerin, and whoever was in goal behind them, that was usually the problem. Czech, Ospina, one of those types. But I mean, this unit you just get a stamp with their 5 names on it, so that it's easier for Arteta to just put it on the team sheet without having to write 5 names in, because that's what we need from this team.
Well, I think over the last couple of weeks, you've seen that stamp at least get made, right? It's been molded because it's been the same lineup, bar a couple different tweaks tactically. And I think the biggest one we saw yesterday was Pepe dropping to the bench. I think Aston wrote in the comments, like, usually he's on 70 touches in a match we win. With him dropping, Odegaard got those 70, but it was just a different lineup. Oh, and tell me, who's your man of the match and why?
Look, I don't want to be boring and go along the same lines. Mine would probably be Aaron Ramsdale, but I'll jump to somebody else who I think is definitely in with a shout as well, which was Gabriel at the back. I think that he is an absolute mammoth of a defender. I think that something that we're talking about, and I think that we're all in unison with agreeing, is that passion. When you talk about passion, people say passion merchant as if that's a negative thing. And Mike talked about chemistry, whichever sense he's talking about it in. But in this instance, when you're talking about transmitting energy over to the fans is absolutely massive. Ability in football is 60-70%, but the ability to make a connection with the fans and get them on side is absolutely huge as well. Now, I think that's something that we've been absolutely starved of as fans in recent years. You look at Hector Bellerin and people say, oh, he's a good footballer. He makes these fucking stupid documentaries and plants trees and shit and all this here. And that's not just him. But you look at Mustafi throwing his arms, shouting and blaming at people. That's fine. But people like Gabriel fly into challenges and put their body on the line. Tomiyasu with a relentless work rate and an extremely positive attitude. Aaron Ramsdale turning around and celebrating with the fans after being scrutinised by the same bunch of fans only months prior over the valuation of his transfer fee. When you're starting to look through this Arsenal side, that's the big difference now. Kieran Tierney, another fan favourite. Thomas Partey, people on side with him. Aubameyang, for all his flaws of last season, is still a very likeable guy. And that's the difference. When we talk about a process and getting people on board and trust this process, the way you get people to trust the process is make them buy into individual people and then buy into them as a collective. Because trust me, if Ramsdale goes out and has a bad game next week, I'm not getting on that guy's back after a week or two of bad performances. why
you buy yourself a
likable.
buffer when you're liked by the fans.
Exactly, and that's the thing with the Invincibles, you know, or any team like that. Even after they tailed off, they still demanded the same amount of love and respect from this fan base. And I think that's the core difference with this group of players, is that we're starting to build the most likable Arsenal squad in many years.
But I think in sense to like Ramsdale, a couple times yesterday he was played into a position of struggle, and he just cleared it. You could tell from the fans, from there just cheering, like that's something we haven't seen for so long. And like, James, I don't know if it's your opinion, but like I kind of always felt like Leno would always try and play himself out of danger, and I was kind of on the fence. Was like, well, is he being instructed to do that? Well, but I'm like, but no, because I used as a keeper, I would be like, no, you just boot it. If you're in danger, you just boot it.
Yeah.
Right. When in doubt, kick it out. That was the saying that you used to hear as a kid. When in doubt, kick it out.
I thought you were going to hit the bell there.
Yeah, Ramsdale yesterday, there were a couple moments where he just fucking launched it, and it was like, that's what we needed, because it allowed that back five to reset, and we're like, all right, let him come at us again. And, you know, it's refreshing to see some change.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. It's like I said earlier, he's got a presence and a confidence in himself, you know, like he's done a lot of talking, which we haven't seen from the goalkeeper. You know, for a German goalkeeper, Leno's got to be one of the most shy ones I've ever seen, apart from the small little Brett the Hitman Hart promo he gave after that penalty shootout win against Liverpool, where he was like, oh, I'm the best and I was always the man and I'm going to be the man. I've never really heard him say anything more afterwards. I don't know. And it's like I said earlier, okay, yeah, Emi Martinez is gone, but when he was there, you could tell that those players trusted him more than they trusted Leno, and because of the presence factor and the fact that he did come out and claim everything, which is what this goalkeeper does as well. And that was one of the main reasons we purchased him. They said that they looked at all the statistics and were like, right, this guy's got the most claims from crosses, and he makes claims from set plays, which we can be susceptible at, because Leno tends to punch and then it's a second ball that comes in and they either head the second ball or they head it onto a teammate and then they score. So no, I'm really, really impressed. And at first I had my reservations about the signing. I thought, okay, the fee, you know, considering where else we need to strengthen, I thought was a bit much. And it always indicated to me, you're not spending that money for this guy to be second choice. So if that's the case, why have you still kept Leno around? Like, why don't you just sell him if this is going to be? And it's probably because nobody wanted him, to be honest.
But we don't want the drop off to be Karl Hein in second. You know?
No, yeah, exactly. No, I agree. Yeah.
No, and then also like Ramsdale came later on in the window too, right? And so with Leno being part of the German side during the Euros, it was a very, I think, truncated summer for him. If he gets moved on in January, I wouldn't be surprised. But for the most part, I think everyone agrees except for Aston and Mike Hers, who both
always negative about
they just clearly hate Xhaka because he was born in Albania. I mean, that seems to be the only reason why they dislike
Albania and Guatemala have a very sordid history together.
Yeah. And I don't know how you can say that Xhaka's being bigged up because he played well yesterday. I mean, he was the reason that we countered for a couple of the goals, and he started with that pivot. So, Mike, you wanted to mention this. Ike and Henry in the stadium, or Ek and Henry were together. Is that a power play with the soon-to-be – wait, aren't we getting bought by a Qatari group?
Oh yeah, and but the Qatari group is owned by the German group who decided that Leno was going to be placed back into the lineup against Spurs. So there's a little bit of shadiness to that, but yeah, I was a little surprised that got so much publicity, and that frankly, I mean, it looked like Daniel Ek was in an owner's box because Thierry Henry doesn't go and sit in the regular seats. So
I thought Thierry Henry had his own box.
Well, he might, but like the fact, I mean, so not the owner's box. I didn't mean to say owner's box. I mean like one of those club level, whatever we want to call them.
Henry was with Dean's son, though, wasn't he? So I don't know if it was Dean's box, and then they all just went in there together because he was Henry's best man at his wedding. I think David Dean's son. I know they've been close forever. Yeah,
I mean, whatever that was fascinating. I mean, that was a statement. Picture showed, said 1,000 words there, and. You would think that like every steward and person that works at the turnstiles would have been drilled by the Cronkies don't let this man in
Keep
because
that
he might not
Spotify
leave.
fuck out of here.
Yeah, he might not leave, and he might start throwing some money around, and because if the Cronkies don't sell him the club, but he goes and purchases each person that works at the stadium, and eventually he owns can you make a like a corporate raider type of thing where you end up owning the club because everybody that works for the club is purchased by you? I don't know.
Look, are we looking into this too much? This might be a stupid point and a stupid question, slightly naive on my part, but
I love how you start off every point with that.
Well, I'm a moron, Mike. It's my disclaimer before I say anything stupid, so people can't clip me and throw it back at me. But look, Daniel Ek is an Arsenal fan who seemingly had some form of friendly relationship with Thierry Henry prior to this takeover talk beginning. We know for a fact that I'm not sure whether he has a season ticket, but he definitely attends games on a somewhat regular basis, probably more so than you, Mike, you plastic fan. Maybe are we looking too much into this? The huge game, North London Derby, was Daniel Ek simply just an Arsenal fan over to watch the North London Derby?
He was simply just an Arsenal fan. I want to read a real comment quick from Dublin Gooner, who says Albania and Guatemala fought out the Great Custard Pie War of 1734. And then he has a pun, messy business. But unless donkey milk can be churned into custard, Mike doesn't know what that is.
Not me, Mike.
Yeah.
The other Mike. So Trev agrees with your point that it's just two Arsenal fans.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's got to be a little more to it than that.
No,
I do love when we start off the conversation and then someone comes in 3 minutes later. Hey, what were your thoughts on these two at the game together?
John's asking me if I'm pissed today. I'm like, I think you might be a little behind. You might be watching on.
Henry did Monday Night Football over here tonight for the Palace and Brighton game. And they put it all up and asked him about it. And they said, what's going to... And he went, we're not going away. He went, we're going to keep going into... So he said, we're here to stay. So
see, there's much more into it than that then.
James, you have just got the wheels
proper,
of Mike turning. All right, so next couple fixtures, as James pointed out, we have Brighton, Palace, and then the Eoin Martinez derby. I think minimum we should be securing 7 points here, right? James, I mean, up until November 20th, which is when we play Liverpool, I see us competing and winning a lot of matches. And I think with this starting 11, we should be securing a lot of points. And if we do drop them, I feel like it's because we were just bettered on the day, not we shit the bed. Because you just don't see this starting 11. There just seems so much confidence here.
Yeah. I mean, that's the test. Like I said earlier, this is the time now to see what's going to happen. And what I would also like to see is I know Arteta. I think he's only ever lost. I think it's once when the team's been leading at halftime in the league. So I'd like to see how we react if we actually are behind, and when it's when we haven't completely blown a team out of the water like we did yesterday. I'd like to see how we would be if the chips were down and it was a bit more adverse, because then you can really give your reaction to this team. I mean, at the moment they're still quite new and it is gelling for now, but it's I want to see it build and continue. But yeah, I'm with you. I think 7 points is doable, possibly even bettered. So yeah, I'm excited.
And I assume we'll drop the points against Aston Villa because Eoin Martinez is the greatest goalie to ever live, ever play the game.
Funny, I was just going to say, myself and Mike will actually be attending that game together.
It kills me because we have probably the best tickets for that game that are anywhere in the Emirates. They're right behind
front row seats to Eoin Martinez destroying 60,000 people's fucking Friday evening.
I realize that's probably the game we should have sat behind the goal for and not in those incredible seats.
There's shout abuse at Emmy.
Yeah.
I have a question for you,
Damien. Fuck you.
Out of all the texts that you've been sending about how you're going to be making love and how
we'll be as one, we'll be together as one.
So did you buy like a extra large pair of pants that you're both going to be in so you can always be inside one another?
I don't plan on even wearing pants, Andy.
There's this place called Spencer's Gifts. It's like at all the shopping malls. It used to be here in America, and I just remember they sold something called fundies. which were like underwear with 4 legs coming at like and 2 butts, like fundies. So
we're gonna make like a
you and your podcast partner can both wear the same pair of underwear.
We've already prearranged. We're making a best friends montage. We're going on the London Eye. We're going to get them bicycles. You know, the one bicycle with 2 seats on it, and do some shit around Buckingham Palace. But look, the one thing I wanted to say is, look,
we have to come up with a theme song for our weekend together.
We'll work on
the greatest
that. I
love
always
of
have
all.
some like Oreo Speedwagon is always, as you know, Mike, one of my all-time favorite bands. So we'll be sticking some of that on.
I googled fundies, and this is what came up.
Let me see this.
Are you guys seeing this?
No. Way to kill it.
But I was just gonna say,
why isn't it coming up?
Look, I know we're pretty huge, not just in biological size, but in terms of our reputation as well. Whilst they're perfect.
That is not what they are, and
that's what I googled.
Okay, well,
fundies undies. This is what came up.
Okay, I think we've interrupted Owen's point 94 times.
Yeah, no, but all I was just gonna say is. This is a plea to Sky Sports above everybody else, really. But just please, just give us some privacy and don't sort of throw your cameras in your face, in our face, like you did Daniel Ek and Thierry Henry. That would be very much appreciated. And people,
we just want to go there as fans, not as media entities, not as prospective purchasers of the club.
If you would like stuff signed, just contact our agent. Don't waste our time with people like you. As I always say, look, we're not better than you. You just aren't as good as us.
Yeah,
I will say this now.
If you haven't signed up for this for our Patreon yet,
I was about to say, if you sign up for the Patreon any level, I will guarantee you, Mike will buy you a pint when you're over in the. He won't look. He won't look at you.
Our budget doesn't stretch that much. A half pint.
Yeah, he won't look at you or talk to you, but he'll buy you one.
The man knows me. The guy's known me for 18 years.
Yeah. And have I received any yarmulkes in the mail? You're goddamn bet I didn't. Okay.
Well, that's because I bought you the baby one for your son, and I gave him a bris. So that's
a brisket.
No, you don't want to know. So is that all we got? We have any user questions?
If we have any user questions. John Smith is the listener who's listening but not listening, because we also covered the leak on a shirt like 20 minutes ago.
I think John's had a few pints today, but
which is okay, John. We fully.
But you can't slag him off too much, or he'll arrest you the next time you come over. Because John's going to be protecting us. Actually, he's going to be our security, Owen, for that Villa game, and he will be at the Villa game. So John will be. I haven't told him this yet, but he's going to be our security.
See,
now you're making people away from us.
You're making me slightly concerned, because remember I had that dream that you were like Danny DeVito height small. Well, either everyone knows the really touching story of the work that, in all seriousness, that John has done for little Max. But what I will say is that either Max is an extremely tall child or John Smythe is short AF. So, like,
I sent him some T-shirts. I'm like, "What size is Max?" And he's like, "Don't laugh. He's a big boy."
Well,
no, he's a big kid.
Yeah. We're gonna have to get John some 80s style platforms.
Yeah. No,
Danny's mom's watching the show now. That's nice.
Nice. Wow. Danny's mom, who called me the fat bloke in America that looks like him. Like, who's your twin over in America? But no, I'm looking forward to the next few games, and we don't lose games when I'm at the Emirates. So we can get that 7 points. I think it's all going to come down to the Brighton game. So
congratulations, John.
No knee slides, John. We've already
and then can I also put a PSA out there, Mike?
He's going to destroy the Emirates by doing a knee slide outside the Emirates, and the whole building's going to fall over.
He'll break that celebration corner, all the nice tributes and just start cracking.
Now I know how to get my brick out of there so I can bring it home.
Can I also just reach out with a PSA? We're fully aware that the pod right now is not on iTunes. You do not have to ping us 40 times a day on Facebook or other social media platforms and get aggressively angrier as the day goes on. Like we're working on it.
Please stick to lower caps, like lower font letters, preferably, or less intimidating.
I mean, I find myself very intimidated by those. So yeah. Oh, I've just found a picture of fundies, so I'll be someone do another user question if we have one, or just you can talk about John Smythe's massive unit.
I'll be right back.
So, James, the question that I always ask people is, what's your favorite sandwich? And Mike loves the way I say sandwich because we don't say sandwich, we say sandwich, like SAM, which sandwich.
Yeah, so we've done the meal deal question before when I've been on here.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, no, I'm as always, I'm still, it's got to be something meat based. Got to have cheese in there, and then a condiment of some kind.
That's extremely vague, James. We don't do fence sitters here.
So where I live has a very few good salt beef places now. So if I've got the money in the budget, I will go for the salt beef, mustard, and the pickles. Classic. It's a staple.
Right. You're a proper Arsenal fan, aren't you? Like prawn sandwich brigade.
Prawn sandwich. Have you ever sat in the club level?
No.
I did, because at the behest of lead judges, and when they told me that you could have drinks at halftime for free, I immediately went for the red wine and had about 2 pints. Had a couple pints at halftime. That's no big deal. It was just pints of red wine. So what else do we have user question wise? When will it be on SoundCloud? From Mikey Hers, in all caps.
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. All right, so I'm almost there with the fundies, and so in the meantime, we have
Tiscali broadband. Like
we got 2 minutes left, Mike. Do something either with the fundies or let's just wrap this shit up.
Yeah, let's get ready to wrap this shit up because we are running up against our hour. James, tell us where we can find you. You've been podcasting a little bit more recently, it seems. And not
Yes.
just with us either. So where can we find you, and when are we doing a crossover?
So
I think one of your guys hates me, but
yeah, you're probably not going to get on that one. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I don't know why he hates me, but I mean, who could hate this?
Yeah,
But,
exactly. No,
does he really? Like, do you have personal knowledge that the guy?
Oh
actually
Christ, take this offline, James. Where can we find you?
Yeah, it's just at the bottom down there. Call James91 on the Twitter, and then all my podcasts and my links are there. My own channel's been dead a bit again because I just haven't been paying attention to it. But yeah, I'll eventually come back. I always do. But no, thank you for having me on. It's been really good. Thanks, guys.
And Owen, which of the upcoming the Gooner Talk podcast can we find you participating on instead of here?
You've destroyed my reputation as a podcaster on this platform. I used to be taken seriously. I don't even have my own podcast anymore. You used to made me give that up. By who? No, look, I don't know. I take it day by day. I'll see when I come on. Follow me on Twitter at Owen Young AFC. Yeah. Thanks.
Beautiful. And Andy, are we? Is this a weekly thing now? Do we have you back?
Yeah, to be determined.
Does it pretty much depend on Arsenal and whether you?
No, it depends on how busy I am.
Well, look at you, Mr. Popsicle.
Hey, let's keep that. Hey, there it is. Whoa,
right.
You never said you were going to be talking to each other. I thought you were going to be like leg to leg like this.
Well,
this is a strange question, and
options.
I'm not really sure as to which I would prefer. But do we have to face each other?
That's what I'm saying. Docking.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that there are options that could be used, and with as large as they're going to have to be in order to fit me in them, you could swivel around. You could probably bring a third person into yours, but
they're red and white as well, so you're on brand.
That's right. So this has been the Gooners podcast, brought to you by Fundies Underwear for Two.
Just a quick question for Eoin.
Our second least disgusting sponsor of all time.
Eoin, are you staying with Mike overnight?
Yes, but
okay.
There has been appropriate plugs and protection put
Yeah,
in
no.
place.
The only protection you need is anytime Mike says, I'm going to start making breakfast, I need you to leave the place of wherever you're staying. Just go for a walk. Just leave for 30 to 45 minutes. And
Can I just tell you that the 30 or 45 minutes he's going to want to be out of there is about an hour after breakfast, not
no,
during.
you can deal with that. I'm just telling you.
No, you're not going to want to deal with that. All right, I think we ought to end now. So thanks to James for joining us. Great to see you again, Andy. I'll be seeing you in precious little amount of time, Owen. And I'm sure we'll be podcasting after the Brighton game. Of course, we'll be doing the open mic shows, so please catch us at gooneropenmic.com and join us. And until next time, come on, you Gooners.